Thank you. Hi, everybody. That's my little intro tune. Love it, love it. That's my son's song that he wrote himself. So of course I'll have to use that on my stream. Good evening, everyone. So nice of you to join. We're talking about the myth of laziness, or we could say production, your ability to be productive at work and at home. And we're going to really dive in tonight. We've got 45 minutes together, and hopefully you will get some value out of this webinar, and that you will feel that you enjoyed it so much that you will share it with other people that could benefit. So forgetting books or stationery at home, forgetting where you've left your car keys, forgetting your cell phone, losing your cell phone, leaving things until the last minute, getting to the shops and then realizing you forgot your shopping list at home, not knowing how to use a diary or never using a diary, making use of a calendar. Does this all sound familiar? There's always a production line. There's always somebody waiting, or there's always somebody waiting for somebody else to give them something so that they could carry on and give it to the next person. There's never just somebody that's working all by themselves in their silo. So does this sound like somebody you know, or does this sound like you? We're going to explain the 8 main reasons why somebody might be not as productive as they should be. And we call this output failure or laziness. We even say you're lazy because you haven't been able to do what you said you were going to do. So we are going to be talking about this, and at the end I'm going to give you a free online assessment that you can do to assess your own productivity and see which area you might need to work on. So joining me this evening, I'm always happy to have my colleague and friend Danny R. Hing with me. She's a remedial therapist here in Port Elizabeth as well. And we're going to break this topic down and give you some important and very necessary tips and tricks. Hi, Dan. We're not going to talk about all the technical hitches we had in order to be here this evening, but it's lovely to have you. I'm so glad.
Well,
we're up and running.
What were we talking about again?
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about the main reasons why someone might be failing at something, failing in the area of productivity. So what are some of the questions, Dan, that we might have to ask ourselves in terms of output failure, or how would we know that somebody is suffering from output failure?
Well, you're going to potentially have a child who, or an adult for that matter, who becomes completely despondent with having to do whatever it is, the task that has been set for them. Despondent, irritable, not wanting to do it, losing interest. And we've got to say, why is this happening? Is it happening because the person has no idea of what they've got to do? Is it because they have lost interest? Is it because they're just simply overwhelmed by what is being expected of them and how much they have got to actually give? Do they have the boundaries? Do they know how much is required of them? Sometimes the volume of work simply overwhelms, especially children. You know, those kids that struggle to organize themselves, you know, the ones that run around and look for their tie at 7:20 in the morning. Those are the little people who we need to sort of have a look at and focus on. And sometimes it's difficult for parents to do that because they're struggling with exactly the same issues, Phil.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Absolutely. And we need to remember that adults can have exactly the same issues as what children can have. So, you know, although we can differentiate, we can't actually separate the issues. It's just obviously at different levels.
Yeah. So we're looking at things like a memory failure, things about not being able to express themselves properly, having trouble generating the new ideas, having, as you say, the inability to be able to get started on a task because the task just is so huge and so overwhelming that they don't know how to get going, and not being organized. So, as you say, their stuff is all over the place. They don't know where to find their things. So, yeah, these are some of the sort of breakdowns that we see as educators. And I can speak on my own, from my own experience. Dan, I don't know about you, but I have a son with, in fact, both my children have ADHD. My younger son has severe executive function disorder. And so throughout school, we've had to find ways and means of being able to support him throughout his school career. Because I don't think without the strategies that we've put into place, I don't think he would have been able to reach grade 12, which is where he is now. So
that's very
looking
important.
at, yeah,
Sorry, I was just
Dan,
going to
looking
say
at
that
the, yeah,
support.
go ahead.
No, the support that's one of the tips that we will discuss a little later on, but you've already touched on it now, is that parental support in terms of giving them those coping strategies. They're not going to work that out for themselves because they're already too overwhelmed with everything that needs to be done. So
Yeah.
we'll touch on that
Yeah, we
a little
will.
bit more later on.
Yeah. There are external and internal factors that play a role here as well. Let's look at some of the external factors. So what are the things outside of the child or adult that could be causing this output failure?
Phil, we have a prime example, especially at the moment, is the socioeconomic situation that many people globally find themselves in. Even prior to COVID, we have a very high unemployment rate. So the socioeconomic background that children are coming from also impacts, because as soon as there's a parent or parents that are unemployed, immediately there is the risk of knocking on poverty's door. And we have many, many people in our country that are in that situation. So when you're in that situation, your focus is not on my child is struggling at school. Your focus is on how am I going to put bread on my table? What are the other things that I need to do before I can even worry about my child getting to school? So that is a very important factor, because during COVID, there have been many parents who've lost their jobs and
And
many
just trying to
others who
survive on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly. And many have had their working hours cut short, which directly impacts on the family environment. And
Yeah.
when you're worried about whether you can feed and support your family, your focus is that's that basic physiological needs that you're trying to meet. You're not even looking at, has my child done his or her homework? So that is a huge contributory factor
Yeah.
to this.
Yeah. And also maybe the home isn't as organized as it should be. So also if parents struggle with putting things back where they need to be, there might be chaos around, everybody's just living amongst chaos. So this will obviously have a ripple effect on the child as well. The family life, what's happening at the home, your culture, everybody's sort of home environment and the way that they navigate through their days is very different. I just see a question here, and sorry, I didn't say at the beginning, guys. Please send your questions through. This is not a lecture. We want your input. We would love to have questions coming throughout. Danny and I will just pace ourselves accordingly, and whatever we don't get to in this talk, I promise you now there'll be an article or a blog that will come out after this, and we can send that out to you as well, as long as you just send me an email. So if we don't get through everything that we've got in our show notes, that will come through in an article. So this person is saying, I don't know who it is, apologies, Facebook doesn't allow us to know who you are, which is absolutely fine. She's battling to focus on one task when we have a few things to do. So do a little bit on one thing and then grab another. Listen, I also struggle with that. Listen, I'm an adult with ADHD, and that is something that I struggle with on a day-to-day basis. If you look at my desktop, my laptop, I've got like 20 tabs open at once on my laptop, and I flit around looking at, all of them at the top. It's a matter of priority. It's a matter of looking at what you need to do at the beginning of the day, putting those down, and then prioritizing what is the most important. It's about project management, and making sure that you achieve. Don't set yourself too many things to do in one day, but look at what you can accomplish. Sort of prioritize those things, put the important things to do first, and the things that are more vital, and then tackle each one. And the best part about putting things down on paper and getting to them one step at a time is you're able to cross them out when you're done. So at the end of the day, you can say, okay, I had 15 things to do, I've done 5. So then the rest can just be carried over to tomorrow. Dan, do you have anything to add there?
Definitely, Phil. I'm reading that as well, and I can identify quite strongly with that. What I can add to that is also many people, they might have only 5 things, important things, equally important things that they need to do today. My problem is that I try and do everything 100% correctly instead of getting something done. And this I was told by a few people years ago, decades ago. Rather try and do something 80% correct, 90%, and get the task done, a good job done, than trying to get everything 100% and you don't get anything finished.
Yeah,
So
we're
I
not
identify
superwoman. Yeah.
with that, but also that is, I think, nature of, for example, a mom's day. Because you will walk into a child's bedroom to put down the laundry that's been ironed, and you'll see a plate there. So you put the laundry down,
Yeah,
you
of
don't put it in
course.
the cupboard yet. You pick it up and you do, and by the
Yeah.
time you get to the
And then get
kitchen,
distracted.
absolutely. So I think also because our lives have been becoming incredibly busy, and that's what happens, and definitely it becomes overwhelming. There are
So
so
in other
many
words,
things. I'm
what you're
not going to
saying
get it
here
done.
is that sitting with 5 things done partially is better than sitting with nothing done at all.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah.
And Phil, all of these things are touching on what's coming a little later in terms of how to manage time and how to manage not just your time, but how to organize your life so that you can manage your time a little bit more effectively.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're all wanting to be as productive as possible because people are paying us to do a job. People are expecting things from us in order for the next person that is waiting for our little part to be done to carry on and continue along the production line. So let's look at the internal factors. The internal factors that could be playing a role here, besides your motivation of, nobody wants to go and do ironing, but it has to be done, right?
The motivation will be I'm either going to go to work tomorrow morning and my clothes will be as wrinkled as my face, or I'm going to make sure that I iron it tonight, not first thing tomorrow morning, because invariably there's not enough time. But there needs to be that intrinsic motivation to get something done. And for very often, well, I speak for myself, I lack that motivation. Not because I don't want to do it. It's because, and I just use this as an example again. If somebody has got a cup of coffee and they put the coffee mug down on the table instead of taking it to the kitchen, you lose your motivation eventually to say, won't you please take that to the kitchen? So you just do it yourself. So that eventually you just feel the Afrikaans people have got such an amazing word as moedeloos. You just feel completely, why do I even bother? So before you've even started, people tend to give up. That internal motivation is very important, and it's
Yeah.
affected by a multitude of other factors. Including what we had spoken about earlier on in terms of the home environment, the socioeconomic factors within that family, because every family's dynamics are different. And that's definitely important. Also, when people are in their place of employment, we all want to strive, or we all try and do better than where we are at the moment. So
Mm.
you try and improve yourself. I mean, everybody would like to have an increase in their salary. You'd like somebody to notice what you're doing. And
Mm.
sometimes when it's not noticed, we take that as a personal,
Mm.
we take it personally,
Yes.
and I do that. I've worked
Mm.
so hard and nobody has noticed.
You're not
Uh,
getting the recognition.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is also, it's disheartening,
Mm. Mm.
especially for teachers specifically.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
You have got so many, and we've discussed this before, between the pair of us, that in many schools you have teachers who are trained teachers, but they're actually working as social workers
Mm.
because of the
The lack
vast exactly
the lack of
that,
support from home.
of course, and it's not
Mm.
very often. I mean, obviously you have that lack of support from parents who are not
Mm.
interested,
Mm.
but you also have on many occasions the lack of support because the parents are struggling to cope themselves,
Yeah.
and that
There's an
is
amazing TED talk. I can't think who the person is now. That's called Every Child Needs a Champion. I don't know
oh
if you've
yes,
watched that, but it's the same.
Rosa.
Every adult needs a cheerleader. We all need somebody saying, good job. Well done. I don't expect everybody to pat me on the back every time I take a
Sure.
cup to the kitchen, but at least say thank you as it's being done. Just that general appreciation, um,
Yeah.
saying thanks and that praise and that sort of you praise the person for making an effort. You don't praise for the result, but you praise them for giving it a bash. You know,
Well,
I
also,
think that's so
when it
important.
comes to kids, you're teaching them not to take anything for granted, because
Mm,
our children are growing up in a disposable society, a
mm,
fast-paced society,
mm.
where we can use this laptop today, or this cell phone today, or this tablet today, but in 6 months' time, that technology is already outdated. So now I need
Yeah,
an upgrade. We
yeah,
are watching a movie. Oh no, this is boring. So we fast
yeah.
forward it
Flick,
to the
flick to the
next.
next channel. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
That
that whole.
instant gratification. Mm,
Absolutely, that's exactly
mm,
what it
mm.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's that sense of entitlement starts easing in to this whole
Mm,
thing, and before you know it,
mm,
it's completely out of control, and parents struggle with that at home.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah. The other factors is obviously your own initiative, taking your own initiative to do things without somebody asking you to do it. I mean, I think generally,
Mm,
I don't know if I'm wrong here, but I think generally that is missing in a lot of our kids, and I think it's just again it's the way that they've been educated. They expect everything to be given to them on a plate, and they seldom take the initiative. The other factor, internal factor, is they need to be in the right mood. They need to be enjoying what they're doing, at least to a degree, and then having some kind of career insight. At least have something that they are working towards. And I think it's the same for us as adults. If there isn't anything at the end of it, why are we doing something? What's the purpose? How does it affect me when it's done? It's that whole thing. Kids always say, "Ma'am, is this going to be asked in the exam?" Otherwise, they don't really care. If they don't have to know it for the exam, they switch off. Is this going to be in the exam?
mm,
It doesn't matter if it's in the exam or not. It's important to know anyway. So I know we're speaking about kids here, but I think for adults as well, there has to be an objective. Why does this need to get done? Um, and then, what is the benefit going to be for me? And then what's the benefit going to be for whoever I'm doing it for? You know, it's kind of there has to be a ripple effect. So I just want to
sure.
stop here now and see if there are any questions before we move on to the actual challenges. We've just been speaking about the causes, the internal and the external causes of sort of production control breakdown. It sounds like a strange word, but it's basically your production controls that are not working so well. or your output failure. You're not able to produce, either you're not able to produce something adequately enough, or you're not able to produce something at all. If I look at, again, my own son, there were times that he just thought if he just avoided something altogether, and he sort of would put his head in the sand like the little ostrich and say, well, hopefully, I can just somehow not have to do it and then it will just go away. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So, yeah, hopefully if there are any questions, please don't feel, if you don't want your question to be put on the screen, you just want to ask a question quietly, you can also do that. You can use an emoji with a shh like that. If you want us to just answer your question without it coming onto the screen, that's also fine. But please don't feel shy to ask a question. Okay, so Dan, we're going to delve into tackling each of these particular areas where there could be some breakdown. So we're going to go to the first one, which is you cannot or you struggle to write properly, quickly, neatly, and it also has to do with your ability to use a computer. So output, remember, output is anything to do with being able to produce something with your hands, specifically. So it's writing, keyboarding, making, something that has to do with the muscles in your hands. So again, kids struggle if they have a lot of writing to do. They have a huge big essay and they struggle to put that down, and so it's too much of an effort for them and they give up before they've even started. So we say your fingers can't quite do the talking, okay, because there's weak keyboarding and writing skills. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is your memory. Now, Danny and I joked a little bit about this earlier because memory as you get older becomes a little bit more challenging. And so we understand if there are others that can sort of relate to what we're saying. You go somewhere to do one thing and you forget when you got there, you forgot why you got there. I went to the kitchen to do something, but I can't remember when I got there why I was there. So weak memory, here we're talking about your short-term memory. Your long-term memory is normally not a problem. You can remember long-term stuff. You can't always remember short-term stuff. And remembering several things at once. So you've got 3 things to do and you can only remember the one, or you can't remember all of them. And then your working memory is remembering how to do something while you're doing it. And that also sounds a little bit strange, but I always think of it like this. If you're doing a long multiplication sum, there are always the various steps that have to take place when you're doing that sum, and you might forget the middle 2 steps and you're going to never get to the answer because you've forgotten how to do the middle part. And then let's quickly delve into the verbal memory, the verbal language. So again, all about producing. We produce with our pens and our keyboards, but we also produce with our mouths and our language. So if you speak badly, generally you're going to write badly as well, and you struggle to express complicated ideas. You struggle to put things in the correct sequence. You're trying to tell somebody about a movie and you start at the end and then work your way to the beginning of the movie, those kind of things. So Dan, you wanted to add something about the verbal communication and how I suppose what must parents do to help?
Phil, there's so many things that can be done. I think it's important, first of all, to understand to explain to your child in your own way how important it is to be able to communicate verbally. Many children struggle to say what it is that they can't get it out. They know what it is, but they can't express that verbally. And that becomes quite difficult. And if that skill isn't taught to children gradually, and as adults we become, well, I speak for myself, but we become a little bit impatient because everything is so rushed. We're in such a hurry to get things done. I saw a beautiful photograph that said, it's got the face of a little girl, and it said, if you color it for me, cut it for me, glue it for me, I don't know, there were about 5 things. All you do is showing that you do it better than me. And And that is exactly what is happening. We need to help our children to improve their verbal communication skills, not speak on their behalf.
Yeah,
And it
100%.
becomes frustrating because, they take quite a while, sometimes, especially when they're little, to tell you a story. And I think something that we can help them with, especially when they have to do orals, is you need to be prepared for what it is that you want to say. As an adult, if you're going to go into a meeting at work, you can't just wing it because people are going to pick it up pretty quickly. So be prepared for what it is that you want to communicate. And while you're doing that verbal, because communication can be gestures, sign language, verbal communication, just a look. You can communicate just by means of your body language.
Correct.
So you need to choose your words very carefully. We have a mutual friend actually who is a psychologist, and when she phoned me when I was at work, and I'd say, "Hello, how are you?" Then she'd say, "Ha, you're at work now, aren't you?" Because if I wasn't at work and she phoned, then I'd say, "Hello, darling, how are you?" And it's those words that we choose for specific situations that we are
Audiences.
in.
Yes,
Absolutely, that's
yes,
exactly
yes.
what it is. And then speaking clearly, when you are going to communicate with somebody, in order for them to understand what it is you're trying to say, you need to choose your words carefully, speak clearly so that that person can understand, and don't just rattle on. Every now and again, just sort of try and get some feedback. Do you know
Yeah.
what I'm
It's the
saying?
art. It's actually an art. Communication is an art because not
Absolutely.
only are you delivering that message, but you're also receiving it in the correct way.
Phil, you were talking about your son earlier on, and I think that happens very often. Children, they're not a behavioral problem in class. They very seldom will put up their hand because they don't want, as soon as you put your hand up, you're drawing attention to yourself. So
Yes.
they don't raise their hand. They are not a behavioral problem. So the teachers very often
Miss them.
overlook kids. Absolutely. So they
Yeah.
slip through the cracks. And it is because they sort of try and shy away from the focus of it all. And that
Someone's
is
taking
that is
notes.
quite
Spot on. Spot on.
yes.
Spot on.
Okay,
Well
sorry,
done,
I got
Facebook user. I got distracted. That's brilliant.
can, can write our notes there.
Yes. Good on
Um,
you.
and
Yeah. Sorry, Dan.
that links. No, I'm a bit distracted too now.
Go ahead.
Shows you about our attention.
Our attention. Yeah,
Uh,
we're
s-
getting to that
yeah,
now.
yeah. And it also, just to go back to what you were saying earlier on about motivation, kids don't want to do something if they're not going to be rewarded for it, which is
Why do we
ludicrous.
give them gold stars and stickers and
Exactly. It's at some point in time they have to learn. You've going to have to do something at some point in your life, whether it's for your
yes.
job or for your family or for yourself that you don't want to do, but at the end of the day, you have to do
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
I think it's important because they've got to learn. At the end of the day, I've got to take out the trash while I'm a kid so that I know what to do, because no one's going to do it for me when I move into my own home one day. So it's those the small things. Phil, the tone with which one speaks as well is very important. And that again, as you said earlier on, links to the audience that you have. If you say to a child, "What are you doing?" immediately they're going to pick up that sense of frustration and almost anger that's coming through, and they're probably not going to tell you why they are doing what they are doing. Uh, they might be ruling a line where they shouldn't be. So the tone of voice that you are going to use in whichever situation you're in, because at the end of the day, every situation we're in is a social situation. If you are with your friends and you're having a braai, that's a informal social situation. The same as when you're with your family. But when you're at work, it's a more formal situation that you're in. And each one of those is going to be the language we use, the tone we use, the words we use, all the vocabulary is going to be directly linked to that situation that we're in. So they're all
Yeah.
contributing factors. You know, children sometimes I learned a very interesting thing from one of the Xhosa students in my class many years ago. And we were talking about communication and looking. When a teacher speaks to you, look at the teacher. And the one chap said, ma'am, in our culture, it is disrespectful to look at an older person in
Another
their eye.
person.
Yes,
Yeah, they
and
look
we are saying,
down.
and that goes back to what you were saying earlier on about the cultural environment. You know, there are cultural differences as well when it comes to looking at somebody.
But that eye
Do I
contact is a tricky one, because a lot
very
of people on the spectrum struggle to make eye contact.
yes.
And I think that is where this whole sort of inclusion comes in, that you might not be able to look somebody in the eye as much as you really, really would like to be able to. You just can't. So, yeah, that eye contact thing, I've learned to not force children to look at me when they're speaking, because, you know, it might not be very comfortable for them to do. But definitely, I mean, it's something to be aware of.
Well, if you
Dan, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the eye contact needs to be in context as well. If you are doing ABA with a child that's on the autistic spectrum, that is one of the focuses, is that if the child looks away, you gently, continuously redirect their focus to you. But that's because that's a specific program that you're dealing
Technique,
with. So
yeah,
you're
yeah.
correct. The eye contact, it sounds like a small thing, but it is each situation has its own relevance to the eye contact.
Well, actually, one of our teachers at school, Mrs. Maxwell, she's amazing. She always says to the children, look at me, look at me. She says, look here, because she wants to make sure that they are actually listening. So she'll say, you know, look at me, and then she'll talk. She won't say, look me in the eye. She just wants to sort of bring their attention back to what she's saying. And I mean, she's an amazing educator.
Amazing.
She really is, yeah. Because that eye contact thing is it's a very difficult part of the communication.
Can be intimidating for children as
Very.
well.
Okay, let's go on to number 4. So we spoke about, the first one was being able to produce writing or keyboarding, your memory, which could be weak. Number 2. 3 is your language, your verbal communication might be a weak area. Number 4 we're getting to is generating ideas, being able to brainstorm, critical thinking, being able to generate original thoughts and ideas, personal interpretation about things, and problem solving. Those are all under that whole creating or being able to think creatively, generating your own ideas. Number 5, also a contentious issue, is distractibility or lack of attention. And then under here would obviously come your ADHD type diagnosis as well. So yeah, I think shall we stop there? Because we did speak quite a lot about ADHD in one of our previous talks. So if anybody that is watching has got specific concerns about ADHD or attention, I would suggest that you perhaps look back on our other webinar. I've done one on the ADHD adult. I've also done one on the ADHD female, and I've also done one on the ADHD child. So go and have a look on my Facebook page for those. But let's quickly just chat about a few things how to improve, Dan, and then we'll go on to number 6. Ways that you can improve a child's attention span. Or a person's attention span.
I think for whether you're an adult or a child, external stimuli, that distraction from behind you or out of the window. Some kids sit in a classroom environment and they start mowing the lawn outside. and you'll find the child's looking out of the window and they're not listening because they're completely distracted by what's happening. So an important factor would be, as far as possible, that you cannot stop because life in the school environment has got to go on. So
Yes.
I think from a teacher's perspective, be aware of those little people and just, even if it's a teenager, try without embarrassing the child, because that's very important. Redirect their attention to you. If it's a mum or a dad, do the same thing. Try and get rid of those visual distractions or the auditory distractions when the child is trying to focus on doing their homework or a task.
Yeah, don't have the TV on while the poor child's trying to focus on
Correct.
his
You
reading
know,
homework.
I don't know how many teachers nowadays still tell children to bring magazines, or they do bring magazines to the classroom, and you'll find children that will page to the magazine, and after 40 minutes they still haven't found one picture because they've been so distracted by everything else that they've actually seen. Full another thing is a memory game, and memory games, you actually don't need anything for that. You can say to your child, okay,
I used to love memory games.
I didn't,
Still
because I
do.
could never
I still
remember
do.
anything. I don't remember anything. Simple things like, I personally believe that's where the retailers make their profit, is because of mums like myself. We forget, first of all, leave the grocery list behind. And then you get to the store and you're desperately trying to remember what it was.
What was
And you end up with a basket full of things. You get home and only 4 of the 20 things you have in there is actually on your list.
Yes.
So
Guilty. Yeah. Or I
ask,
go into the shop and I take a basket and I think, I'm not gonna need a trolley. I'll just take a basket.
carrying it in your
And I never manage to fit everything into the. But I'm blown if I'm gonna still go fetch a trolley, because that'll just be embarrassing.
Oh, wait, you are not well.
Anyway, yeah. Okay.
Phil, also, when
else?
have a specific area for the child to do their homework, and don't let them sit there for an hour and do all the homework. Give them a little bit of a break in between. Let them go and wash their face, run around outside, come back in, and then carry on working, so that they have a little bit of a breather as well, because they've had a long day at school. High school kids as well, they've come home, they've had sport, they only get home at 6 o'clock. So if they've got a set space that is theirs, that they can just use to focus on, that is ideal, because I know that is my space, and I can use that for myself.
Okay, but now let's stop there, because that's number 8, or that's the next one, is having your space organized and tidy. That is very important. So where you are working, make sure that wherever it is, whether it's at the dining room table, or whether it's in your room, or whether it's in a study, that there's an amount of organization, that everything that you need is there. You've got your stationery, you've got your whiteboard that you might be writing stuff on, and it's ordered. It's not scattered all over the place and you're running around, where did I leave my sharpener, where's my book, where's my exam pad, that it's in one place. At least we can help. If somebody is a bit scatterbrained, and if somebody does struggle with organizational skills and distractibility, at least have their space where they are going to work ordered and tidy,
Phil, one last thing I want to mention with regards to improving the attention span is, if there's a specific amount of work, have a look at what it is and break it into chunks. We call it chunking. So you are doing a bit of the work, and once that's done, you're also giving the child an incentive. So they can write down, I've got to do this, that, and the next thing for my homework.
Yeah.
So once I've done that, I can have a 5-minute break. Then I'm going to do the next little piece, and I can have another break. Because it's when they laboriously sit there and they do one bit of homework after another. And having said that, it becomes very difficult, because the older they get, the volume of homework increases. Because you know what it's like.
100%.
Every teacher gives you, and this is linked to being able to use a diary correctly. I think if children are taught how to use that diary, it helps them to it helps them
The number
to
of times
plan.
that a diary was blank for the entire year of my son's schooling. I tried to get him to use a diary. I tried, I really did. But that diary was empty.
Yeah.
He just could not, and refused to even try. So,
It's
yeah.
it's very difficult. You know,
I mean,
some
primary school
children.
was different. Hold on. Primary school was different, Dan, because primary school, the teachers would actually, there was a certain amount of instruction that went into writing your homework diary. There was
Sure.
writing your homework down. There was almost a time factor where they would force the children, take out your diary. Can you see the work, at the end of every lesson, however they did it, I can't remember how they did it. At the end of every lesson, write your homework diary, move to the next class, or at the end of the day. There was definitely the last bit of the day was 10 minutes
Yeah.
for them to organize their diary, put everything down, make sure they packed in the same books. High school, no, you're meant to be able to do that yourself. You don't, there's no time for that.
I
You
think the
must,
transition from grade
Yo,
7
it was
to
tough.
grade 8 is
it's massive.
huge.
Massive.
And
We
the
must
high
do a
school
show on
teachers,
that, Dan. We
good
must do
idea.
a talk on transition grades from
Absolutely.
grade 3 to 4, the jump from grade 3 to 4,
Yeah.
the jump from grade 7 to 8, and the jump from 9 to 10. We must definitely do something on that. I must make a mental note. Sorry,
Phil,
I'm
also
interrupting you.
that gap between grade 12 and first year tertiary
Oh
institutions.
my
It
gosh, that's a
it's
webinar
a,
all on its own.
It is. You can have a whole series on that because that
Yo.
ends up being a nightmare.
Yeah.
But because in the foundation phase, I know grade 1, normally the teachers start by writing the homework in for the little people.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
gradually they teach them to start doing that on their own.
Yeah.
But, it's that whole thing of if I have a test for next Wednesday, I'm going to write it in today. But no, how are you going to remember it next Tuesday? You've got to learn for a test the next day. So it's also correct use of
There's
the
that
diary. And I
planning
think
again. Oi, toch.
absolutely
Yeah.
that's why kids lose interest.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
understand how to use the diary correctly. And then, as you say, they get to high school and it's like they weren't taught anything at primary school because they don't remember. They
Yeah.
go blank in those 6 weeks.
Yeah. Okay, we've got 2 left, and then we're going to move on to the final section. We're running a little bit behind, but we're going to go very fast now. Okay, the next one is your mental energy, or your levels of being able to be in the right frame of mind to be able to do work. So like Danny said, kids come home from school, they're tired. They need a break first, they need to have some kind of a downtime where they can get something to eat, play some sport, go for a run, whatever it is, so that they are ready to then learn. You need to get your mind and your body ready to learn. Don't start doing something at 9 o'clock at night. I mean, we know what we like. We've got to go and prepare some work for the next day. You're not going to start preparing at 9, unless you're a night owl, of course. If you're a night owl, that's fabulous. Good luck for you. That's probably when you are at your best. If you're a night owl, you work through the night or you work till late at night. That's fabulous. But not all children or kids who are going to school the next day can, because they've got to get up for school the next morning. So make sure that you time when you are going to work best. I know that there are some habits of highly effective people where they say, I know when I'm going to be at my peak, and I will leave the most challenging tasks for that. So for some people, it might be before 11 o'clock in the morning, they do their most challenging task. And then the afternoon, when you're sort of a little bit more tired, you do something where you're a little bit, I don't know, more creative, and you brainstorming with somebody, and I don't know, keep meetings and that for afternoons. But depending on when you're at your best is when you should do the most challenging tasks. So we spoke about mental fatigue or brain fog that sets in, feeling tired and difficult focusing, feeling like this lack of motivation. We speak about stress eating or fatigue, where you just, I actually cannot do this. I need to go for a run first, get my juices flowing, and then come back and try again. I mean, that works for me. I don't know about you, Dan. When you're feeling tired, what do you do?
I stress eat, Phil, can't you see?
No,
Um,
I can't.
uh, I don't actually know. I just,
Push through.
I don't actually know. I just push through and try and go
Mm.
to bed early. It's
Yeah.
not always possible because sometimes work has to be done for early the next day.
Don't
But,
leave things till the last minute.
well, says one mother to another.
Yeah. Okay, the next one. Production control. Production control is again all the time management aspects. So, working at an ideal rate, knowing how long something is going to take. So, if you know that a project's going to take 5 days, don't leave it to the day before. Kids don't generally know that straight away. So, Danny spoke about chunking, breaking up a task into manageable bites. I mean, how do you eat an elephant? One day at a time, right? One bite at a time. So, thinking about the best way to tackle a problem. Danny's gone, but hopefully she'll be back.
I'm
She's
here.
back.
I
So,
took a
we're
break.
speaking about timing, time management skills, and planning. Thinking about the best way to do something again. If you've got something that you need to do, knowing, okay, what's the best way to do this? Is the best way to do a video presentation? Is the best way to do an article? Is the best way to do a slide? What do you call it? A PowerPoint? Knowing how am I going to deliver the work so that it can be the best received, all those kind of things. Again, people this doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. They need help. They need some support there. So Danny, give me, a frustrated parent, help me to be more organized, or to help my child with organizational skills. You've got a lot here. So let's just talk about maybe 4 or 5. The rest will go into the article.
You've spoken about having a specific space already full.
Yes?
Checklists. We've spoken about checklists. Let them
Yes,
write
we
down. They
have.
know it might not be a diary. Let them write down what needs to be done. You can start when they're younger. Let them tick off the grocery list. Have some patience. Give them the list. Let them tick off as they go along.
Yes.
We've already discussed. You mentioned arranging what you have to do in order of priority. Clean up. Have a weekly cleanup where the child goes to that desk. I mean, we do it as adults, and you have a look at it and you say, it's an organized mess. It looks like chaos, but I know where everything is. But do you really know where everything is? So the children are going to follow your example. Help them to declutter that desk. If there's scrap pieces of rough paper, rough notes they've made, help them to throw away what they don't need. Put away books that are lying there that they don't need. They've used it for a project, they've never put it away. Help them to prepare for tomorrow. So a simple thing like putting out your school clothes tonight, so that they don't come to you tomorrow morning and say, Mom, I don't have socks. Where are my socks? Now, I don't know where your socks are. I didn't wear them. Put it out tonight. Then tonight I can go to Mom and say, Mom, I don't have any clean socks. Okay, well, I'll hand wash a pair and you'll have them dry for tomorrow morning. So help them to
Did you ever dry
prepare
wet
for the
socks
next
in the
day.
microwave? Did you ever dry damp socks in the microwave? I did,
I've
because I didn't
never
have a
tried
tumble
that.
dryer. Or in the
Tried
oven.
that over and
I
over.
used
Yes,
to dry
I've
them
tried
in the oven. Okay.
Desperate moms. And then we
We should do a
basically touched
webinar on
on
that.
all of them. We should actually, for moms only.
Desperate
Sorry,
moms, not
dads.
desperate housewives. Desperate moms. Okay.
We know there are dads that do this too.
Sorry.
And then it just shows how important these organizational skills are, Phil, because we've actually touched on every one of the ones that we've written down or wanting to discuss as we've
Yeah.
gone through it. And the last one that is probably the most important one is just to support your child. That is really, really important because they like you said, we're not born with these skills. It doesn't come
Yeah.
naturally to us. We need to be guided through how to develop our organizational skills. And sometimes, you get to adulthood and you still haven't developed it, but you learn
Yeah.
to cope in your own way. And that's also good.
So on that note, I have drawn up a checklist. It's called the Executive Function Assessment. And what you can do, and it's not mine, I've taken it from Dr. Mel Levine's book. His book is called The Myth of Laziness. And you can find that literally anywhere online. I have taken his book and I've created this checklist. And if you would like to see how well you do in terms of your executive function or your output skills, your production control, please send me a message or email me. My email should be coming along on the screen there. I will send that to you. And what it does is you be very honest, you go through the checklist and you say, how well do I do on this particular task, or how good is this person at? And there will be tasks there, and it's 1 to 5, and then I score it and I give you a little feedback at the end. It's all online, so you don't need to, it's completely, you can do it anonymously, but then you're not going to get the feedback from me, but you're more than welcome to do it anonymously. Or if you would like a report to come with some maybe tips and tricks of how you can improve on the areas where you struggled or that you are weaker than others, because listen, let's face it, we cannot be good at everything. There will be sections that you are better at and sections that you are not so good at, and that's absolutely fine. That's what makes us unique. So if you would like that, please email me and I'll send it to you. It's a link, and you just download, or you go onto this Google form and you fill it in, and Bob's your uncle. Any more questions before I finish off and say good night? In terms of production control, output failure, it's been so nice chatting about this. This is something very close to my heart because, like I said, I have had to be very creative with how to get my child motivated to do anything. Projects were always a nightmare. Studying and preparing for tests and exams was really challenging. But at the end of the day, we found a way to work together, and thank goodness my child is still alive. And I really do sympathize with parents who are struggling with this kind of thing with their kids. And I really do think this is an important topic to discuss. So, like I said, that article, Dan and I put together the show notes for this talk, and then we will send out an article. But please email me if you would like to receive that. And yeah, next week we do a quick Q&A. Wednesday is just a summary of tonight's talk. So please feel free to watch next week or share this with other people. Invite them every Wednesday, 8 o'clock. We chat about various challenges that we might be dealing with or our kids might be dealing with. And Danny, do you want to quickly tell what is your area of specialization with regards to doing remedial? What sort of age group do you like working with, and what particular areas do you like to help kids with?
In the past, I've basically worked with children from grade 1, and the focus has been reading comprehension, phonics skills, and maths. But recently, my focus has gone over completely to reading comprehension skills. Reading is learning, and it's a mechanical skill. So it doesn't mean that the child's going to understand what they have read, but they will need that for every other subject apart from English. So my focus 100%. Is very specific, reading comprehension skills. And I do that for English first language, home language, and first additional language. So that's where my focus is at the moment.
And are you doing face-to-face, Dan, or is it online?
I actually have, I wanted to start online. Everything is up and ready to work online, but the parents that have made contact have actually asked for face-to-face sessions, which I found very, very interesting. I don't know what the reason is behind that, because at the end of the day, when it's face-to-face, they have to find the time, bring the child to me, then they wait, and then they've got to take the child home or come and fetch the child again if they haven't waited. But that seems to be what they've wanted. I can't explain why. But that's
Okay.
it's face to
So
face
they can
again.
contact you. Yeah, if anybody would like to schedule an appointment with Danny, send me an email as well. I can put you in touch with her. I have chosen to do more online consultations simply because I don't really have a place here set up to do sessions with kids, but I prefer working with the parents and the older children. So just to give parents some support. They generally phone me with particular areas that they are worried about or concerned about relating to their children. Maybe, things are not going so well at school. And they're just needing some advice. So I've been doing quite a lot of online consultations and assessments online with kids. It's been quite nice because we've hooked up through this kind of channel, and the mom is there with the child, and the child and I are working together online, and they do assessments, and I send through the tests ahead of time. The parents print them out, and then they do them with me online through the camera. So it's been quite interesting. I enjoy that, I must admit. And also just chatting to the child through WhatsApp. It's generally support for a child that might be struggling. Then they can reach out to me on WhatsApp or through my email, or we can do little sessions like this. But yeah, it's so nice that we have Dan and I have got different fields of expertise that we work with, and we support one another. And yeah, we are around if you want to reach out to either of us through Facebook, through WhatsApp. But yeah, I think we've spoken a lot. It's been a lot to take in. And it's been amazing. Thank you so much, Danny, for, again, giving up an hour of your time, if not more, because, of course, we have to go through what we're going to talk about. So I appreciate your support, my friend, and your guidance, your wisdom. Thank you so much.
2 cents worth. Thanks for having me.
And thanks, everybody, for watching. We will see you again next Wednesday, 8 o'clock. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.